this ink I got in the mail today. This is the SBRE Brown trademark or special ink made by Diamine. I got it from overseas, retail overseas that he listed on his website. I've inked up 6 or 7 pens here with it. Just want to kind of show you how it writes after watching his video. I haven't seen too many writing example videos online, so I figured I would do one for you. It's a nice ink. It's dark brown, really a lot of shading I've noticed here with my the first few days I've gotten to write with it. This is a Rhodia dot pad, obviously. The first pen I'm going to use here is, I'm going to try and do kind of like he does, the fine, medium, broad. I got some flex nibs inked up. This is a Schaefer Balance with a feather touch nib, really fine feather touch. This is easily my favorite fine, extra fine nib that I have. I got this pen on eBay for not a lot of money at all. It has a crack in the threads here that's barely noticeable. I probably could not show it to you on this camera. It's barely noticeable. It doesn't affect the pen at all. And this thing writes like a dream for an extra fine especially. So we'll start off with the extra fine here. Okay, so we have, let's see. Like I said, this is a really nice ink pen, extra fine nib, nice ink though. This ink has a lot of shading. That's what I've noticed thus far. I can't get to focus quite that close. Let's see if I bring it up here. If we can get her to focus. Come on. Not going to be able to pick it up too much with the extra fine. There is a good amount of shading though. Yeah, I can't really see it quite yet. So let's move on to something a little bit broader. See if we can't get some to show up. Let's see, this is a maybe Todd Swallow that I have. This pen I bought from Greg Manuskin. He's a nibmeister, sells a lot of pens off of his website. This one has a lot of flex to it actually, but it's a pretty good medium nib too for regular medium writing. So let's see what we got here. Now we're getting some shading. Can't really see it quite yet yourself, but this pen actually has some really nice flex. As you can see, but now you can start to see the shading even without me moving it up there. Getting some good shading there. Even in the writing, the non-flex writing that I did, there was a good amount of shading. It really does shade well. You can see it. And you can see the little bit in that extra fine writing that I did as well. I don't have that good of lighting here in my family room, but it definitely shades very well. And brown inks, I love that because I like to use brown inks at work or wherever. You can use them in a professional setting because they're not too flashy. It's kind of like a black ink, but it's brown, so it has a little bit more character, but can still be used pretty much anywhere. All right, let's move on to the next one here. I have, this is a small wall pen, one of those really miniature ones. Another pen I got from Greg Manuskin, actually. Didn't really notice that. I was going to be doing a Greg Manuskin commercial, but this is another one I got from Greg Manuskin. Has a flexible nib, a nib that did not come on this pen. This one is a Wall Eversharp signature nib that comes on the 40s era Skylines and whatnot, I believe. No, not a Skyline. What do these come on? These come on like the Wall gold seal pens. I can't remember right now, but pens that are later dated, I believe, than these. These all gold-filled Wall pens had just nibs that say Wall, and this one would have come with a number 1, 0 or 1, I believe. I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, he ground this nib to be extra flexible, and it is that for sure. It's actually pretty fine, but I figured I'd write with it. I had it around here, figured I'd ink it up. So here we go. So getting some shading there. Not quite as much as with the Swallow, I guess. So you can tell what he does with these pens is he grinds them thinner, especially. I really am not sure, and I'd love to talk about it, if he makes the actual, if he cuts metal and makes the tines thinner this way, but he definitely makes the shoulders thinner this way. Like he grinds them straighter. If you saw this nib when it was new, it would be, the shoulders would come out farther, so it would have a steeper angle to the tipping point instead of this longer angle, long tine. And that's a general shape of flex nibs if you really study them, and that's what he does. So you can kind of tell when a nib's been ground. But this nib writes excellent. I haven't written with it in a while, and I'm seeing now that the tines are a little bit unaligned, but still writes great. Has some really good flex ability. Nice and responsive still too, I think, because it started out as a thicker nib. The metal's not dead. Oh, I seem to have run it out. Ink flow is pretty nice. I do have a really stubborn Schaefer. Why don't we take a look at that right now? Alright, this pen is an older Schaefer hard rubber pen that has an absolutely outstanding nib on it. The only thing is, it's not the nib that came on the pen, again, and so the feed in this pen is not quite fit for a nib that's as flexible as this one is. So you really have to be you know, you have to choose wisely when you pick your inks for this nib and this pen combination. And I was having a lot of trouble with the ink in this earlier. It seems like it's a little bit thick, a little bit sluggish, the ink, and that's part of the reason you get such good shading. But it definitely wasn't setting the world on fire with flow. So let's see what we can do now. And I actually let, all these other pens have been inked for about half an hour now. This pen I inked up yesterday and started writing with this because this pen, it helps a lot if you let the feed really saturate. And it still was giving me a hard time. So let's see what we get here with this. This nib is absolutely awesome. Non-flex writer as well as flexing. I'm really not pushing too hard, trying to keep the flow. Focus here. This thing is really amazing. It's responsive. There's a tremendous flexibility. I mean, the moment with some inks, I can get this to write no problem like that, any of that writing I'm doing. But if I really try with this, you know, this ink is not working that well. So I don't think it is the best flowing ink ever. But this is a stubborn pen. So if you get a good combination like the other two flex pens I showed you, you should have no problems. So this here, next pen I'm going to show you, is this is a 90s Pelican M600. This pen has a medium nib on it. I did air quotation marks that you couldn't see off the camera when I said that, or I wanted to. It writes like a broad or a double broad. It's the broadest nib I have, well now, but it's close. Definitely the broadest medium. It's ridiculously broad. It's really awesome. It's really awesome. So I'll show you. This pen had Emerald of Chivor in it, and it has since I got it about a month ago, so it took me about a half an hour to clean it out correctly. I haven't written with it since then, so hopefully we don't have any issues. This ink is actually really well behaved in this pen. This pen's normally ridiculously wet and ridiculously broad. It actually doesn't look that broad with this. A little bit of spring, as with all Pelican nibs. Like I said, this is normally really, really wet writer, and it's not really, that's wet, but this ink is not very wet. It's not wet. It's, I don't want to say it's dry, but it's definitely on the drier side. All right. Final pen I have here lined up is this Waterman's 52. This pen has a really nice flex nib on it. Nothing too crazy, but one that's really easy to control and just writes great. It's a very straight nib. I really like writing with this pen. This is probably my favorite pick up and doodle pen at the moment. So let's see what we can do here with the 52. Oh, this pen had emerald of Chivor in it, and it seems to be lingering. So this isn't really going to be a good example of the ink at all. But it looks like Rohr and Klinger Alt Goldgrün, sort of. So we'll just skip this. I'll give you a really quick demo of how it writes. Really nice flow. I wanted to show you, with this one, if you have a correctly flowing flex pen, you'll have no issues. But not today. Alright, so last thing I want to show you is that this ink I have found is very, very similar to another Diamine ink that I have. And that is this ink, Diamine Ochre. It's very similar. I've inked up my trusty Lamy 2000, which currently has a fine nib on it, to show you the color similarity. Lamy Safari. Did I say Lamy 2000? I'm not sure if I did just a second ago. It's a Lamy Safari. So the Safari with this ochre is really close. The ochre looks there to be just a little bit. It's very close. I mean, if you look, this is really similar, like right here, and this writing, it's really close. It's a very similar ink, and I always use this ink at work as my professional brown. That was, had a little bit of character, but had some shading. So as you can see, the ochre is a little bit more red, which makes sense with the name, a little bit. Now it looks a lot more drastic in the camera there than it does in real life. We're looking at them with my eyes right now. It looks very, very, very similar. There's just a little bit more red in it. The SBRE Brown shades a lot better. And this ochre ink shades well. Diamine ochre shades well. The SBRE Brown ink shades even better. So it's a great shading brown ink. I got it from that retailer, like he said. It cost me like $26 shipped to the United States, which is, pretty good. Most of it was shipping, so if you live in Europe, I'm sure it will be cheaper. And that is reasonable, I think. But it's definitely a cool color. I plan on having it take over ochre as my daily use brown. Light brown. I like lighter browns because they have a lot of character, like I said. Alright, just run through them all once again here. Why not? Oh, I gotcha. Another thing I wanted to mention is on the packaging, they have the fingerprint, the brown benchmark, like Steven does, which is awesome. I think that's. The packaging is it's not a legitimate, I guess you would say, or a real Diamine ink. It's just a bottle with a sticker on. That's all their inks are, but it doesn't have the regular Diamine branding like one of their normal bottles does. But this is cooler, I think. I mean, that's awesome. You know, if you're going to buy a bottle of ink because it's SBRE Brown Ink, that's what you want to see on it, the brown benchmark like he does. I wouldn't have bought this ink unless it was, unless it was his ink. I already have a brown, but figured why not. I have one now. So, and I like it. It's definitely a cool ink, worth picking up, especially if you don't have a brown. You know, it's a great little brown. Alrighty. And that is gonna do it for this video. This one really has some nice shading with the swallow. I'm going to be putting up more pens for sale videos, more just all around fountain pen videos as I think of them, think of interesting topics. Haven't seen a lot of these SBRE Brown Ink videos yet, so figured I'd do one. So thanks for watching. I will see you at the next one.